Good afternoon, hello, and welcome to For Fox's Sake TV. My name's Anil. I'm joined by a very good friend of mine, Luke from Leicester City Down Under, and this is actually my debut stream. So I've often been invading many of the other Leicester City fan content creators, and a lot of people said, "Hey, Neil, why don't you make your own one?" So finally, I've decided to do it. And yes, hello, Luke. How are you today?
Good, mate. I'm so stoked that you finally started to do a channel. I think you're going to surpass me very quickly. So brilliant to see you starting to make a step forward, mate.
Thank you. And as you can see why I've invited Luke. I love the fact that he blows smoke up my behind, but he's actually a really great lad and gives a lot of invaluable analysis. So this channel, what it's about, there's many channels out there. Loads of people do great stuff. I really recommend you join theirs, follow them. You probably are already if you come to this channel. So I wanted to do something a bit different. And I like to take a kind of objective look at things and try and be very analytical. Try and let the facts do the talking. Of course, everyone's got an opinion, just like rear ends, everyone's got one. But I try and use data to kind of inform things and look at things that way. So today, and on today's show, we're going to be doing a pre-season review even. So we've just finished all of our friendlies, and we just finished playing Lens yesterday. And Luke and I are going to talk about what happened, what went well, and what didn't go so well. And I think, sadly, there's a lot to talk about. The Premier League season kicks off 8 days from today. Are we looking forward to it? We'll come over it in a minute. So without further ado, I'm going to start going through things, and let's see how things go. So the pre-season review. So yeah, on today's show, we're going to be looking at two matches in specifically, the match against Lens and also the match against Augsburg. And we're going to be doing some analysis and review. And if you haven't followed him, please follow Luke at LCFC Down Under. Great channel. So one of the matches we played just yesterday was against Lens in France. You had to pay £10 if you wanted to watch it on the official stream. We'll talk about that later. Pretty controversial. And how did it go? Well, I think there's no sugarcoating it. This was one of the worst performances I've seen in a very long time. If you look at the stats here, we were beaten on possession. We had only 2 goal attempts in the entire match. Only one was on target, which was Tom Cannon, and that was quite late in the game, and it was a pretty poor effort. We were up against it for a long time. We lost the game 3-0. This performance, in fact, was so bad that if you go on the official highlights channel for Leicester City Football Club, there's an 11-minute clip and there isn't one passage of play that shows Leicester City even having an opportunity. That's how bad it is. I, in fact, would go as far as saying that for me, this performance was as bad as the one against Bournemouth in the season that we went down. Now, look, to be fair, this is only a pre-season friendly, and I don't like to be negative, especially starting a new channel, but I think a lot of fans right now are very worried after seeing this performance, and I think it's only fair to say that that's kind of true. I'm going to start going through all the kind of objective facts, but before I give you kind of real examples, Luke, you got to see that match yesterday. What were you thinking?
Dire, really bad. I think the main theme I've been saying this over again, but I think the main theme to take away from these preseason games that we'll get into is I feel like we lack an identity and a playing style right now.
Wow, couldn't have said it better myself. We're going to jump into that and look at it, but coming back to the presentation, the things we've got prepared. So what I'm going to try and do before we get to Lens game is I'm actually going to look at the Augsburg game first. And the reason why is that although we also lost this game, this one, I felt there was some stuff on show. So I felt that, well, Luke can maybe give his opinion, but I think we did see more of an identity. I'm going to try and explain exactly what I think Steve Cooper is trying to do. So even though we lost this game, in the end, we did have quite a few attempts on goal. We actually had more possession. You can see we had more touches, more passes, we made more tackles. So that was good to see. And I think in pre-season, the scoreline isn't so important. My personal opinion is I thought this was okay. I wonder about you, Luke. What did you think about this game, if you can remember it?
Yeah, that game, from what I remember, was okay. Nowhere near as bad as the one last night. But you could see in like drips and drabs that what Cooper was trying to do, it's not clicking amongst the team, in my opinion. It's as fast as it did under Enzo.
I would agree with you. So you know what? Let's actually talk about the formation and system, and we can talk about what happened. So first up is that Augsburg game. So this is how we lined up. We lined up in a 4-2-3-1. Actually, this was against Lens. So do you know what? Let's go to Augsburg. This is more important. So yeah, we lined up in a 4-2-3-1. We used a double pivot of Harry Winks and Wilfred Ndidi. We actually had Fatal on the right-hand side, thankfully. And we had Mavadidi on the left, or was he on the left? And Bobby Reid made his debut playing in the team there as nominally the number 10 position. However, what's interesting about the way that we play is that although we start in this kind of formation, very quickly what happens is we actually move things around. So very early in the game, you can see he's 33 seconds in, and you can see here's Victor Christiansen. We're on the attack here. So this is Augsburg's goal, and you can see just how high up he's got on the pitch. He's actually acting as the left winger here. And you can see that him and Mavididi are working together on this left-hand side. And that's quite a big change from last season, where last season we'd have three at the back and the wingers would stay out wide. And it'd be Steffi Mavididi who'd be the one that's hugging the touchline. So in this system, what's happening is he's shifting inside. Now, this is quite a common system. We're not the only ones that use this by any means. Ipswich use this system, for example, where Leif Davis actually joins the attack to become a winger. And there's many teams in the Premier League that do something similar. So what tends to happen is, as you can see, Victor Christiansen here, he bombs up all the way from left back. Now he plays as a winger when we're in attack. Mavididi slots inside, so he's playing more as a kind of 10 or 8 position. So you could almost think about him occupying the spaces that Kieran Dewsbury Hall did last season, for example. Bobby Reid is here in a 10 position. Fatau is just remaining on the right-hand side. And then there's some other interesting things. The back, we still play with a back three. So Fass and Justin here split up. And in this game, Vestergaard was the main builder. And then off our double pivot, something I think is a bit different is that Winks himself tended to be the one that sat the whole time. And Ndidi pushed on a lot. And in fact, in many games, it's Ndidi that's playing really high up and almost becoming a 10 at times. And Daka actually does drop back to try and play as a sort of false 9 at times. And I guess the idea is to try and find those 10s that can find the space in behind. So that is what I feel Steve Cooper is trying to do. And I've got some examples of that. So yeah, here we can see Steffi Mavididi's position. You can see he's so much more central. When we played under Enzo, something that he was a really big fan of is stretching the game as far as possible. So Mavididi and Fatau would literally be standing on the touchline, and they would be doing that, almost having the paint on their boots because they're trying to force the defensive line to be stretched as far as possible. And that would make the space for the two attacking eights to be able to run into. You can see, though, that when we attacked in this game, we were pretty aggressive. We still tried to get 5 players into the box. And again, look how high Christiansen is. He's actually the second furthest forward there. And if you could find the ball for him, you potentially could slot it in. So whoever this player is, he's going to be used in an attacking way if we use this system. Here we can see Vestergaard. So we've got a back three here. You can see them all here. Bass here on this side. That's JJ on the other side. We've got just the back three here. We've got the central pivot here. Harry Winks, Wilfred Ndidi. You can see Bobby Reid just ahead of them. Mavididi here. What I would say maybe is a bit of a difference is that where is sort of the other 8? If this was last season, this player Mavididi would have been Kieran Dewsbury Hall, and he'd probably be here to sort of make more of a box midfield. So that's maybe a difference that I'm not necessarily a fan of. We're going to come to that a bit later. But this is, again, kind of explaining the system. So we're still looking to have a kind of 5 at the back, 5 forwards to try and give us an extra man. So one of the big reasons why teams actually have 5 going forwards is that most teams defend with a back 4. So 5 is more than 4, and it gives you a man advantage. Yep, here you see that's Winks and Ndidi starting as the double pivot. That's a change because obviously last season we had Ricardo there. And something that's a bit of a red flag for me is that Ricardo is neither in the starting lineup nor in that position. We'll come to that in a moment. Here you can see an example as well. This is actually in the second half. And this is my point about Ndidi pushing forwards. So here we've got the back 3 and Vestergaard is just about to, well, he just played this ball looking for Winks. But compare his position to Ndidi. Ndidi's pushed right up. So if this was Maresca, you would have this being Ricardo, and Ricardo would probably be standing here waiting for the bounce pass from Harry Winks. Here he's pushed right up. You can see that we've got kind of more of a 3 spread across here, and it's trying to be more aggressive that way. That potentially gives you an extra man to go forward. It does also maybe mean defensively you could be a bit weaker because you've only got one man here, and if he gets targeted, you could lose the ball. There's pros and cons, but you can see that Harry Winks is going to be the main man again in terms of the build-up, but his partner in crime, Ricardo, less so. So yeah, that's sort of how we're trying to attack. In terms of defending, we do actually just go back to a regular 4-4-2. Here you can see there'll be Bobby Reid in this game that pushed forward to join the defensive line in the 2-man block. Actually against Lens, this was Ndidi, which was a bit worrying if you ask me, because Ndidi played as one of the 10s instead of Chowdhury as the double pivot. We'll come to that in a moment. But here you can see Christensen gets back to make the 4. Do we press? Well, we do try to press. So here you can see that here's an example of a high press with the front five even in the second half. So second half game, 64 minutes in. But again, you can see Augsburg have played the ball back to their keeper. This is Bobby Reed. So he's going to look, he's already on the run. That's his pressing trigger. He knows I'm going to charge down the keeper. You can see Fatawi's pushed right up on his man. We can see here Mavadidi's got multiple men around him. And this is Ndidi that's pushed right up as well. So there's only 4 men in the press, though. That is something to take note of. That is actually 1 man less than we did under Enzo. But we are still trying to press the ball. And here we are trying to do it collectively. So that Fatawi is trying to block the passing line to this player. Indeed, he's trying to block the passing lane to this player. There are some out options here, though, which is maybe a weakness. Here we can see as well that although Ndidi started next to Winks, he was actually jumping up with a man-to-man press. So that's something that can be seen as a bit of a difference, because before he would probably keep more along. And what we see instead is, in this case, another one of the players, and I believe this is JJ, is pushed up to get the man here. So we're trying to be aggressive and get the ball back. This is not too bad. You can see again, if he's trying to play the ball into here, he's got someone shadowing him. If this player tries to play it here, there's someone shadowing him here. He tries to play it here, someone can get him. Even if he tries to pass here, we've got someone here to potentially block him off. So this is actually quite good. This is sort of, trying to pose the team a problem and trying to win the ball off them. And so what about when things go quite badly? I wouldn't say badly. I mean, this happens in every game. Even under Enzo, we did this. If we have to really defend, we'll defend in 2 banks of 4 and we'll have front 2. So again, a 4-4-2. This is very common. Even Man City do this defensively. It's just they don't get into this shape too often because they normally have the ball for 3/4 of the game. But even they will defend like this when out of the ball. And that's because it's a very efficient and very difficult system to break down, as we ourselves found out last year. You have 2 banks of 4. So even if you beat the first line, there's a second line. Look how condensed and compressed the play is. I mean, look here, if you're Augsburg, what do you do with the ball here? Maybe you've got an option here. I mean, good luck getting the ball to any one of these 3 here. You're going to be in trouble. You're probably going to play it back, and that allows the team to push up. So that's a little bit about the defensive shape. So that was the game. I don't have any clips from this on. I've saved the video clips for the Lens game, which we're going to look at. But I did want to show you this because this gives you the idea of what I believe Steve Cooper is trying to do. Now, I've got some of my thoughts of it, and I'm going to go into them in a bit more detail in a moment. But bringing Luke back up here, what are your kind of initial thoughts on that system? How did you find it? I mean, normally it takes a bit of time to get things going. So what did you think about the system in that game?
Frustrating, because if you think about the times when we were devoid of confidence or creativity under Brendan Rodgers, right towards the end, you had Madison to try to do everything and himself and get us back into the game. We don't have a player to do that for us right now. And what I'm seeing mostly is it doesn't look like everyone's in sync. We're not all pressing together. And people complain saying we look slow under Enzo, but we look slower, in my opinion, under Cooper, because everyone's not on the same page. Now, when you have Ndidi pushing up, making that space to 10, while Daka drops deep, it gets a little convoluted sometimes, and that's when we're seeing mostly, in my opinion, further up when we're in our final third, people getting in each other's way. It's also their problem is Christensen going high up the pitch, not really putting any balls in that game. The Augsburg game didn't seem to put any balls in the box. Very negative going forward, which is fine if you're drawing people out of position, but we're not trying to do that. So it didn't work, but that was only one game. One thing also to mention, just to top it off as well, if we're talking about comparisons under Enzo of superiorities and having 5 people instead of 4, if someone was playing a deep block against us while we had Enzo, JJ would then become that 5th man outside the box. He would push up alongside Mavadidi and Keenan Dewsbury Hall. We don't see that now because he's on the right, which is nothing wrong with, but that's the biggest difference in what I'm seeing.
Very good. I agree with a lot of what you had to say. So here's my thoughts. You can see I've put a nervous face there. So overall, I was a little bit apprehensive. So in that particular game, I did think that we had overall control of the game, which was shown, I think, in the possession and the touches. I felt like the offensive and defensive structures were clear, so I could see what was going on and I could sort of understand the game plan. I actually felt in that game, players weren't getting in each other's way compared to the previous games, like against Shrewsbury and Palermo. So I thought that was a bit better. But I think the big thing, that here are my points, and you just mentioned it as well, lack of creativity. We really created very little in that game. It didn't look like we would score even if that game went on for another 3 hours. Just weren't creating chances. Christensen out wide offers little. He'd get the ball often in very good positions, but he always just kept cutting back inside. He never wanted to cross it in. He never wanted to beat a man. And I just think if you compare that to Mavididi, when Mavididi was out wide and he got the ball, I mean, you could tell that teams were terrified, and you could tell that the crowd was excited because he could beat a man. He could surge down the wing. He could have a strike, and it made a big difference. One thing that I've noticed throughout the friendlies is we're not using Mads to his strengths, which we're going to get to a bit later. I'm going to show you some clips of that. But that kind of makes me sad. I think Mads Manson is one of the best signings we've made in recent years. His distribution for a goalkeeper is absolutely absurd. I think he's also quite good at the just goalkeeping side. He's made good saves. You know, maybe he could be a bit better there, but he's certainly not bad. But with Enzo, we use his distribution to be an extra man, and it really worked well. There was a lack of movement and incisive passing. Again, I'm going to show you some clips later of some of our play from last year where we looked absolutely scintillating at times, and we just haven't seen it at all pre-season. I think for me, that's the biggest disappointment. Normally, that's one of the easiest things to work on in the training ground, is doing your little training ground rondos, passing it back and forth. And I think that sometimes we got caught out on transition. Now, to be fair, that happened last season too. Like, for example, Blackburn last year, they literally scored both their goals when we got caught out on transition. But I felt that the big weakness here is I mentioned that Ndidi jumps, even winks by himself. And I think that that could be something that if I was an opposition manager, I might look to target that particular thing as a pressing trigger. So as soon as Ndidi jumps, I might jump on winks, if that makes sense, because you could rob the ball. I hope that doesn't come true, but I've got a feeling it will do. And yet, overall, like you, and this is sort of the summary, and I really hate to be negative, but it just feels like a worse version of last season's tactics and setup. And I said this to Luke off air, but what I feel it's a bit like, you know, when you're in school and you haven't done your homework and you ask your mate if you can borrow it and copy his answers, and you do it and you might even get a good mark. But when it comes to the test, you're going to fail the test. And you're going to fail the test because me, unlike Luke, I don't understand how he got the answer. So I'm just going to look there baffled. And that's sort of my worry here, that Cooper did say that he's watched all of the games and he's tried to replicate things, but I think he's not really understood how or why it's worked. And we're going to come to that in a moment. So that's that game. But I got a feeling that what people will be more interested in is this game, the game against Lens. And so I wanted to kind of wait a little bit before jumping into it, just because this is going to be pretty negative, because there's no way to sugarcoat it. Even Steve Cooper, to be fair to him, after the match, he said, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That was an awful performance. Here was how we started. I've got to say, I really dislike the way that we even started in this particular game. Why? Well, we've got Wilfred Ndidi as a 10. Yes, he really did play as a number 10. We decided to play Okoli and Fass at the back. No Vestergaard. So this lineup, it doesn't have Vestergaard and it doesn't have Ricardo, two of the best players on the ball and playing out through spaces last season. They were admitted. We decided to put Bobby Reid in the team, and we didn't play Mavididi from the start, although he did come on later after Daka got injured. So we're not using one of our better wingers either. So I think already, look, to be fair, you might want to get different levels of fitness into people. But generally speaking, Lens were the toughest opponent we were going to play. We knew that. And this is the last friendly before we play in the Premier League. So normally, you'd expect the lineup that starts here to be pretty similar to the lineup that's going to start game one. So for me, that is a worry. Again, start of the game, same sort of system. So the difference here, we've got Hamza Chowdhury's coming to the team. So he's coming as to make the second pivot with Harry Winks. Here's the two of them standing next to one another. While Fass is actually the centre of the back three. So he's the primarily building the attacks. And again, just like in the previous example, we can see that Christensen's already like 10 seconds into the game, moved to the left wing position. Here you can see Ndidi right up as a 10. Bobby Reid's the one that's shifted in. So like we've said before, that's the sort of system there, and that's how we're going to play. Okay, so now I've got a few clips here. So here are some examples of us passing out from the back, and this is right from the start of the game. And actually, you can see that what we're doing here is we are doing what we did last season. So we'll try to find the middle two. Here you can see Fass. He's waiting, goes into Winks, Winks back to Fass, Fass back to the keeper. Keeper's he's putting his hands up. He's trying to bring the team onto him. Then he's played the long ball down the wing, trying to find a man. In this case, it was Daka. It didn't quite work. So, you know, I'm going to show you this just again. I'm going to show you, here we go, bounce pass between Winks, Fass again into Chowdhury. You can see what they do. Look, Daka's just dropped back there as the false nine. So all of these patterns of play, I would say, are actually extremely similar to Enzo. So when he says that he is trying to kind of keep the same system and just make some tweaks, he definitely has a point here. It's not like it's completely different. That would be a very similar sequence of plays, what we see under Enzo. I'm sure, Chris, if he was to see that, he'd be complaining about the fact that we kicked it long and it didn't reach a man. But that will happen. That's just the way of the world. So we were trying to do that, and that does look like it's going to be a plan. But now I'm going to kind of move on to maybe some of the elements that didn't work so well. So that was passing back. Now we're going to move on to pressing. So here's my example of some pressing. And Luke, I'd like you to watch this. I'm going to ask you what you think about this. So here we can see Lens. They've got the back three. They're playing around themselves, played it out to the wing. Bit of pressing here, playing it back to the keeper. Keeper's got it now. Towers chased him, play to the defender. It's now gone out wide to Lens attack. So still managing to keep the ball here. Ball over the top. Oh, little back flick. Wide. So I'm going to play that clip again and just tell me like you see it, Luke. So this is us pressing. What do you think of this pressing? You're the manager of Leicester City or the opposition team. What do you think about this?
It's painful. I think the biggest thing to take away from that was how badly Hamza got scored. Okay, here we go. If you look, okay, so if we're going to press, you've got Fatawu way up front. Daka, there's no one else there in support, which is painful. So if he does happen to win the ball, and then right here, okay, Hamza fails to get the ball, fails here again, gets drawn out of position, and he's also now not marked either of the two people that he's left his man for to try and get the ball off. And if you look at him, he's in open space. So that's right there, criminal. We're not in sync as well. We're not all going up. If you look back to the very beginning of the press, under Enzo, once something's decided and we make a move, everyone's moving in sync off the ball. Right here, everyone looks confused. Yeah, it's just painful, mate, to be honest with you.
Brilliant.
And would you even call that a press? Like, Fatawu trying to do what Vardy would do is the dog's work is try and chase down the keeper right here. Where's the press?
Well, so just for everyone who's watching and following along, so this is sort of like the idea of the show. Apologies to Luke. I'm kind of using him to sort of be like, what the hell is happening and to call it like he sees it. Just for your information, Luke hasn't seen any of these clips before we started, or he did watch the game yesterday. And I'm trying to use him to like make my point. So I think some of the things that Luke said here are absolutely bang on. It's like, is this even a press? What are they doing? I think this is so poor in terms of press. Here it's maybe not so bad. So we forced them out wide, trying to block some passing lanes. So we're pushing them back. Here we see, okay, Fatawu. Now this is poor. He's going by himself. So look at that. That's a very easy pass from the keeper to find the man. No passing lane was blocked. So all Fatawu's done there is make himself tired. Now Hamza's trying to go man for man. Okay, he doesn't get the ball back. But now look, because he's chasing, look, free man here. Totally free man. Where's Ndidi? He's just running back now. He's missed his man. Now the ball's gone out again. All that's happening here is we've been given the runaround. Our players on a hot day are getting tired, chasing shadows, and they're getting nowhere near the ball. And that is a very poor way to press. And the problem with pressing, if you press badly, is that not only do you get tired, but you actually give the opposition more room to work in. Another thing I would say is look how high up Lens are able to get before we even start the press. Against Augsburg, we actually pressed them much higher up the field. So that is okay, because sometimes you want to conserve stamina. But the thing is, up into here, so here's where it really starts going badly. If he's going to chase it, this passing lane on this guy here has got to be blocked. That lane, someone's come over to him, but it's very late. So look, this guy's received it. He's managed to turn. So although Hamza's done badly there, he's done badly because he hasn't got to the ball fast enough. You see what I mean? He's not quite fast enough to get there. And that's another poor one. So it's been played into the middle. It's been played that wide. And look, this guy here is free. There's three men around him, but no lanes are doing it. And so what Lens are doing is look at this. Another one's beaten two men. He's found the spaces. A good team is going to absolutely pull you apart. And this was just in the first half. And this is why the score in the end was 3-0 to Lens.
Basically,
yeah.
Sorry, just basically in a nutshell, bottom line is we just fell victim in this play to everything that we were doing to other teams last season. If you, in terms of, us running down like that, tiring ourselves out, basically they're just creating space. They're drawing us out of position, particularly of Hamza Chowdhury. And that's a classic example of like where other teams came undone when they decided to try and press us.
Exactly. And what I would say is that in this game, we saw a team full of confidence, managed by an upcoming British manager that were creating rotations, playing out from the back and playing through the press wonderfully. The only bad news about that is that British manager was Will Still and that team was Lens. It was not Leicester. So I do congratulate Lens. They were very good. And you're right, they were doing everything that we did to teams before. So now that's how you called it. So now I'm going to show you some pressing from another team. And this team is a team called Leicester City. And there's some clips from last season. And tell me what you see about the pressing in these clips, please, Luke.
Okay. It's a bit hard to see. Okay, it's Ndidi. It looks like Fatau. In space, Akina, Drewsbury Hall. There you go. You've got Mavadidi right there in support. Beautiful. Oh, I remember that. Breaks my heart. Everyone is in there ready to receive the ball in a position. And even if they don't even get the ball, they're still creating that space and drawing that position, play out of position. Look at that. There's just every single time, there's always someone standing or running in the correct, perfect space. And I think that comes down to Enzo's coaching and man management. Look at that. This is a little bit hard to watch after the pre-seasons. This is just glorious. Okay. If I can't use my mouse to show you, but like if you look, you can just see. Okay, here we go. Fatau. You've got Ndidi as an option. There's the move right there. He's going to dink it in. Here you go. Bang, in you go, header. That's a move we saw many times last season. And
so this is what's really scary for me is this was a team. This is the same team. This is about 5 months ago, maybe, that they're playing like this. And you can see how effective it was. You could say that the quality of opposition was not as good. But, for example, we didn't press like this when we played against Shrewsbury this season or Palermo. And those are teams that I would say we probably have a far stronger squad with. And again, so we're in black here. Look at like they're hunting in packs. They get into the ball. So, I could keep going with this, but I'm going to kind of move on. But here's some of my observations, right? So because we're playing with a 10 and not two central attacking midfielders, it was part of that Lens move. So again, when I'm talking about the press, one thing that's a big difference is we're pressing lower up. So we're not pressing as high up the pitch. Compare that to the clips that I just showed. But we're also pressing with not as many people. And that's a big difference. Right, so if we had two central attacking midfielders, there would be another man that'd be up here to make more of a 4 to really kind of try and get the ball back. So when you're pressing with a man less, right, it's going to make your press less efficient in terms of winning the ball back. On paper, it makes you more secure in a transition, but it makes your press less effective. It's a slower press with fewer players. That's the TLDR, right? So here, we would have had 5 people up here if this was last season. This time around, we only have 4 because you can see that Christensen's back here. Whereas last season, this would have been a back 3. This would have been Mavadidi. Mavadidi would have been here. Fatau's in the right position here. And then that would mean you'd have a Drewsbury Hall in here, the striker, and, normally the other attacker. So that's how it would work there. So, here's my kind of opinion on the pressing. There's not committing enough people forward to press. We're not pressing in packs. We're too slow to press. There's poor pressing triggers. So a pressing trigger is, for example, I see you pass the ball back to the keeper. As soon as I see that, I charge the goalkeeper to block the passing lane. You saw those clips of Hamza or Fatau. When they're chasing the ball, they just look like they're lost. That's literally your words. They look lost. What are they doing? They're not understanding what to do, and it's not being very effective. The passing lanes aren't being blocked. That's a big one, because if you're not blocking the passing lanes, what's the easiest way out of the press? You pass the ball. Very simple. So that makes it easy to play around the press. And so that means you've got overall an ineffective press that tires out players and creates gaps for opposition teams to work in. And that is why we got completely undone yesterday. It was very, very poor to see. So let's try and find some good news, shall we? Spoilers, there isn't much, but let's move on to the build-up. So here's another kind of issue that we kind of saw. So we're going to take a look again. I've called this ineffective build-up. Again, just give me your opinion, Luke, from what you're seeing here. What's good, what's bad about going on here? So here we've got a throw-in. Christensen has thrown it back to Okoli. So Okoli's moved out to the left-hand side. Into Fass. Into Winks. Winks to Chowdhury. Up Chowdhury. Poor touch. Lons have won the ball back. Breaking forward at speed. Ball into the top. Out to their winger. Winger all cutting in. Oh, someone's managed to put a blocker in there. So I'll show that clip again. If you can see Luke's face here, it's probably a summary of many of the Leicester fans yesterday. I'm pretty sure at this point in the game, Luke texted me and he said, I'm really concerned. So what are you seeing here? I'll rewind it again.
Hamza Chowdhury being a liability. Okay. The biggest thing for Chowdhury's positioning is why is he so close to Harry Winks? He offers nothing being so close to him. And you're doing the same thing as well. If you watch us press in possession with the ball, Chowdhury's positioning was absolutely awful and was leaving Winks undone many times. Confused.
That's it.
Confusion.
That is exactly it. What I want to do, I mean,
sorry.
No, it's okay. That was literally the point that I wanted to make there. What I'm going to do, you keep talking about that, but I'm going to compare that again to another team. This team's called Leicester City. This is from last season. And have a look at their build-up here, and maybe you can compare the two things that you've seen, and you can tell me what the differences are, what was maybe more effective, less effective, about what you're seeing in the clips here compared to there. So you go, Winks into Ricardo to Winks to Daka through to Dewsbury Hall. McAteer's there in support. Is he going to pass it? No need. In the back of the net. That's Vestergaard into Yunus. That was all over the top. Tom Cannon. Lovely finish.
It's best goal.
That's Vestergaard. That was Iheanacho, I believe. Out to Fatal was on the left hand here. Dewsbury Hall. Ricardo into Iheanacho. Nice goal. It's Dewsbury Hall. Ball across the box. Oh, nice ball from Fatal and Ndidi. Tap in. Oh. Here's Ricardo. That's Fass on the right-hand side. Back to Ricardo. Ricardo in. That's Dewsbury Hall. It's Ndidi. Ball out. Iheanacho. Tapped in by there. Dewsbury Hall again. I think is that Doyle. Oh, nice play Ndidi. Remember Ndidi, so this is Ndidi. Oh, great feat for the big man. Vestergaard out to Fass. Fass into Winks. Finds Ndidi.
There's the trigger. Look, everyone moved.
Yeah. That was Daka.
If you go back to that first clip.
Your favourite striker there. No. Tell me, you talk. I'm just providing the clip. So you tell me.
No,
you
sorry. The first video you played, the first thing to talk about was what you often like to talk about, which is superiority. So if you look at the first video that you just played, which I think they were wearing the white shirts, it was 5v4 in the press. And it goes to what you talk about in hunting in packs. Okay, there we go. This is the one, I believe, if you watch this. I think it was that one. But you're going to see it plenty of times. It's going to be the recurring theme with the Enzo ball was the superiorities and 5v4 in the press. And that is just not, it's just missing. We're not seeing it. I can't remember which one it was, but I should have caught it as I seen it. But the biggest thing to look at everyone. Look, okay, here we go. Everyone's moving. Everyone's trying to offer a position, offer another option. And we're all in sync. It's you don't see that, and I really think that it comes down to training. And you talk about how Cooper wanted to come in and he studied our games, and he wants to not change it up too much. Well, I'm sure he means well by that, but I don't think he has it in his wheelhouse to be able to instruct the players and where to be and where to stand, and to again hunting in the packs and the press. It's just not there at all.
Totally agree. So what I wanted to identify as well, where I feel we've got some problems, I mentioned it there before with how many people are forward, but a big thing with Enzo, the way that we played, is we use something called a box midfield, which is quite common. You see most Premier League teams use this these days, very fashionable. And essentially you create this box in the middle of the park and it allows you to find an extra man. So here's what it did. Now, this actually, you can see how early on in the Enzo reign this system was used, because that is Castagna, that is Dennis Pratt. We've got people here that Suter was in the team at this point, Stolarczyk. So this is in his first game, and we already saw the box midfield. Now, here's where we are with Lens, and here you can see that we've tried to get the box midfield. And again, I just want to ask you, because you mentioned it, and I think you touched on some of the right points, but I'm going to maybe pick you up on a few more. So here's what we're trying to do the box here against Lens. Look at the shape there. Now I'm going to compare this to the box midfield. This was against Burton Albion last season. So again, we've got the box, got Dewsbury Hall. We've got Winks here. This is Ricardo. And I think that is maybe, actually not sure who that is. It could be Pratt. So that's how the box looks there. That's the box here. And this, of course, so the difference is in this clip, we give the ball away. In this one, we end up going up. Well, I'll show you a little bit later what ends up happening here, but it's a lot more effective. What are the differences that you observe in between those two pictures?
Go back to the other one. Every single pass we have just about going forward is going to get intercepted, and we are completely outnumbered by Lens. Chowdhury is way too close to Harry Winks. I don't know.
No, that's all right. I would agree with everything you said there. I think the biggest thing for me as well is actually the shape of people's bodies and their body position. So the reason why I agree that Chowdhury is really close to Winks here, but even if he is that close, that could be okay. But with where he's standing, his body shape is all wrong. And that's why he's ended up trying to sort of play it off the back of his heel. Here, can you see the difference where everyone is? Look at the way Kiernan Dewsbury Hall is standing. He's standing, so if he receives the ball to his left, he can turn and move in that direction. Mm-hmm. Same with the player on the other side. If he receives the ball and the ball's going there, he can receive it on his right foot there, take it on the half turn and move forward. So it's all one smooth movement. Look at both of these two together. Can you see where they're open bodies, they're facing forward? Compare that to here. Winks is probably standing in an okay position, but Hamza's standing in entirely the wrong position. The distances also maybe are a bit far away. I mean, yeah, if Hamza's a little bit further out here, then perhaps it could work because he'd get the ball. Maybe he could ping it into this free man here. We'll get to it in a moment, but I do say that, maybe in this particular example, I can criticize Cooper, but you do also have to criticize the player because Hamza does make a meal out of it. But sort of in general, when I look at a build-up, I guess the points I'm trying to make to you are this. The players selected for the roles are not best suited for the task. My point is Chowdhury. So one of the big things I wanted to point out is that we tried Ndidi and we tried Hamza in a role, but we haven't tried Ricardo. Each one of those clips that I showed you, I mentioned the name Ricardo multiple times because he was elite in that position. The body shape and angles aren't optimal. One really important thing about Enzo is he knew where players should stand. As I say, the difference between receiving it on the half turn and receiving it on the full turn, as of Chowdhury, is you're going to put yourself into trouble. And the other thing we kind of talked about before. So that's the build-up. It's not really kind of working too well. And yeah, the final thing I did want to say, so I just mentioned with Hamza, is it has received the ball here. But to be honest with you, what he tried to do is he tried to sort of like turn and play it back. And in this example, actually, he should have just played it here to this man. That was the right move, right? Sometimes you've got to be aware. But again, that's about having the right person in the right place and being the right role for the task. Because Ricardo, although he did get caught sometimes, he was very good at playing in traffic, as Enzo would like to say. And he was really good at being able to make the right decision at the right time. And if you have the wrong player, you're going to get caught time and time again. And that is what happened in this game. And I think one thing that's been really disappointing for us this pre-season is that our ability to go back to front has been awful, right? In this game, I think what was so tragic is not only losing 3-0, but we never even looked like laying a glove on Lens. We never even really got into their half. We just couldn't make the passes stick. It was just so poor. I mentioned that last year, Neil and I did a game where we played Liverpool in Asia, and Liverpool beat us 4-0. And even though we lost 4-0, I said to him after the game, I think we'll win the championship. And the reason I thought that is that in the first 20 minutes of that game, we made multiple chances, we played out from their press, and we did really, really well. And then what ended up happening is Liverpool tightened up, they switched on their press, their dominance and better players kind of took count, and we got tired and it didn't work. But the thing is that if you're trying to teach a system, because that was literally 1 month into Enzo's reign, I was like, if you can be that good that quickly, then over the course of the season, it's going to get good. And that is, of course, what happened. Here's the opposite. And what's even worse is that we've gone backwards. It's just very obvious to see. Okay, so to round up the show, this is probably going to be the the most painful part of all. And I wanted to look at the goals conceded because I think this is kind of important to sort of understand. This is a bit like match of the day. We'd get Alan Shearer or Alan Hansen, bless his heart, back in the day. They would look at the goals and they'd try to explain what's gone wrong and why. So this is Lons' first goal. It's the ball starting with their keeper. Plays a long pass. Christensen's headed it back. Not a bad header. This is Okoli trying to play it to a man. It's been cut out. Bad mistake again by Okoli. All across. Saved there, though, luckily. Mads kept us out of trouble. So it stopped a surefire goal there, Mads. That was probably a high XG attempt. It's gone out to another man. No sort of pressure on the ball. They've got all the time and space that they want. Played it back. They're trying to keep the deep 4-4-2, you can see here. So they're trying to be compact. Out to the wings. Ball into the inner space. Okay, so it's gone for a corner. So we've defended that pretty well in the end because they haven't managed to get after the sort of first attempt. And of course, it's come to a corner, played short, no pressure on, played to another man, no pressure, dinked in, headed in, 1-0. This absolute catalogue of errors. It's playing again. So here again, keeper's got it all the time in the world, where no pressure, just standing up there aimlessly. Ball over the top. Okay, that's actually quite good defending. That's decent from Okoli. That's a bit unlucky. He's getting used to the system. That's a poor mistake from him, I've got to say. Great save. Here again, so the ball's come out wide. We're trying to get our shape back. Okay, we've stopped the cross going in, so maybe not too bad. No pressure, but again, we've stopped the ball from coming in. So I think this is okay right now. You can see how many people we've got in the box. Man out here on the wing, though, that's not a good look. Someone out here who's free. Ball's come again. And now that man out wide's got the ball, played it into the channel, but at least it's been covered there. And Winks managed to get to it. So we did defend it quite well. Now, from the corner, and you know that we're poor from set pieces, this is really bad to see, I would say. And I apologise. Luke looks like a man who has lost the will to live, probably because if you watch this game, you would. I mean, they've got all the time in the world to play it. This man who's tracked the runners, who's tracked the headers. It was a well-worked goal from their perspective, but wow. That was about as bad as you can get, I think, from Leicester's perspective. But don't worry, guys, it gets even worse, unfortunately. Keeper's got the ball again, no pressure, ball over the top. Managed to win first contact, but not the best header. Not enough pressure on second contact. Back out to Lons players. It's gone out wide, again, trying to form the deep block. Managing to play in between the spaces. No one charging the ball down. And be fair, that is a good finish. But what I would say here, in my opinion, if I was being critical, is I'd say there's just not enough aggression to win the ball back. Like here, especially, if this was last season, people would be told you have to win that contact if you don't make the foul. They've let the guy get the ball and play, and now you're in trouble. But this is poor as well. That like we've got the compact block, but look, Christensen there. I don't know if you saw that. He backed out of the challenge. That was pretty poor from him, I've got to say.
That's what I've been waiting to say is one of the biggest things that stands out is that you talk about like, how we're not well drilled and it doesn't look like as we were under Enzo where players knew they wanted to be. If you go back to that boxing that you mentioned earlier and the players in their positioning and they're basically ready to run onto the ball, move together, hunting as a pack because they knew what they had to do and they had the confidence. The players, from what I'm seeing, look just as confused as we are where they need to be sometimes, and they don't look confident like they actually want to receive the ball. So that is one glaring thing that stands out to me. And then in turn of that, when players aren't confident, backing out of challenges, you're also starting to see, and again, I know it's only preseason friendly, but we're seeing players getting the shits on of one another and blaming each other, and that's not good before the season's even begun.
Totally agree, and it's sad to hear it, but unfortunately, it's true. And just to make you feel even better, we'll finish with the third goal.
This is the worst one.
And tell me why. Why for you is this the worst one? I wouldn't disagree with you at all, but why is it the worst one?
Because it looks like I'm watching Leicester under Enzo Ball. They just absolutely ran through us. They all moved together. They absolutely cut through us like a knife through warm butter. To be honest with you, if this wasn't a Leicester game as someone else, I would actually really enjoy watching this because I think they played really well to give credit where it's due.
Yeah, I totally agree. They always let free man here. They're always into the inside channel. He's played it across into a dangerous area. We haven't cleared it, made an effort, followed up on the rebound. Look how many people they had in the box. They were pushing up. As for us, my goodness, I mean, these clips just say it's just aimless running about. We're literally chasing shadows here, trying to make a challenge here, calm, trying to make a challenge here, not a good one, trying to get in, calm, man left.
And where's
free.
Okoli come from? Okoli's bit like the furthest one up the pitch, and he's coming running back in, and he's our centre back. Go back for a minute. I didn't even realise that. Where's he come from? There again.
It may be that Okoli's not on the field at this point in time, but no, I think he is though.
That's him running in. See what I mean? Where did he come from?
Well, let's try and find that.
It's a centre back. I don't even see where he doesn't come off the bench.
Yeah, look how high he is. Okay, so do you know what?
What is he doing?
Thank you for. He must have been man-to-man marking, but fair play to you. I didn't notice that. That's even more disturbing. Let's just play that again, so you can see he should be here in one of these positions. Instead,
he's our centre
he
back.
randomly shows up now. So yeah, look, to be fair, if you don't laugh, you'll cry, right? That's the sort of thing. So, I mean, yeah, these are my overall. We just talked about it, right? That's my overall kind of feeling, and it's just really, really disappointing. So look, what I try and be constructive about these things. Like I said, there was actually zero to show that was positive from that Lens game. That's really shocking. Normally, you could show one thing. There wasn't anything in the highlights. When you watch the game, there wasn't anything to promise there either. So I'm trying to be positive or try and be constructive here. Maybe someone from Leicester's watching this. I doubt it, but if it somehow gets to them. So what worked last season? Why were we such a good team? So I'm going to show you some clips from Enzo Ball. This was the very first time we saw Enzo Ball in action. It's the clip that I showed you with the box midfield. So here, can you see that? Yep. We've used the keeper. We've played it out from the back. We found the space. Look there at Dewsbury Hall in the space that he's got there. It's come in. This is Vardy. He's pulled out wide. He's dinked it across. It's headed out. Let's just play the clip again. That was Cody. Cody back to the keeper. It's actually Stolarczyk at this point in time. Wings, waits, plays. Ricardo, bounce pass back to him. Beating a man. 3 men out of the game. That's
Can you pause it right there? Go back.
Unfortunately, this is a GIF, so this one I cannot pause because I have to leave it play. This is some old footage. But, you know, what I would say is this is like the same concept as last season, but the difference is that here it worked. This is a beautiful play.
Look how many options we have right about now. Okay, if you look at Dewsbury Hall, you could easily make the argument they could have squared it to Dewsbury Hall. It's in the right position. He points. Dewsbury Hall could have ran into the ball. But that's the difference between Enzo and Cooper. You can have 2 to 3 options because we're moving together and pressing in superiorities compared to Cooper, where you're looking for that James Maddison type player to dig us out, and we don't even have that, and it's just not existent.
Here's another one. Ndidi, ball across the box. Oh, wonderful finish from your man Daka there. So this is, see, Ndidi's telling him where to play the ball. Look at how much time he's got. Ball across. Again, this is all from the same game. Here I'm talking about inside channel runs. So Vestergaard there. All Brighton, who's in the team there. Ndidi again, ball across. Bit of applause. Okay, some more. Here's us playing back. We're actually under pressure here, and we almost make a mistake, but Fass gets back. Okay, we managed to recover. That is Ricardo again. Keeps his cool. Plays it out. Now, because he played it out from the back, look at the space he made. Oh, drops it in. That's Justin that you've mentioned, making the outside run. Ball across.
Beautiful.
Tapping. And what's really interesting about this one, this is the example here is dragging players out of position. But it shows you how even with a mistake, look, that's well won by them, and that could cost you. But because we're operating well, look, we managed to cut out the passing lanes. We've got people back to defend. And we've actually turned a mistake because now, look, they've got so many people pushed forward that they've got men out of position that actually that mistake, as crazy as it sounds, is probably the reason why we score a goal. But it's just the system and the understanding of how to play. This is one of my favourite ones here. That's Ricardo. Lovely little turn there. Into Pratt into Fatawu. The Fatawu and the combinations. He's trying to play into Kelechi. Kelechi's got no right foot, so he's never going to score that in a month of Sundays. But luckily, he can play it back to this lad. And this lad I heard is quite good. Oh, I think he might be. Wonderful finish. But again, it's a sort of back to front play. It's Ricardo who here. Look at here, play again. Watch it. He's under pressure, gets it, turns, spins his man, and look at that. He's taken a man out of the game. And now his mate's got complete freedom of the park to play the ball. That's how the system works. Here's some more. Harry Winks. Look, I love this. Not enough this. He's just waiting. You come to me. I don't need to do anything with the ball. You come to me. Plays it back to the keeper. Keeper's getting charged down. But look, this is Mads coming out. You see how wonderful he is on the ball. That's into Ricardo now, completely free. Look how many people we've got free. We've got the superiority. It's 5 there. Look, you've even got Makatira could go to Patel. Unselfish. Boom. Brilliant, slick football. And yeah, you mentioned it before. So I think one of the keys is when we played under Enzo, we'd get control of the game. And once we had control of the game, this is what we'd look at. Look how high up the pitch we would be. You know, Mavadidi and Patel would be right out on either touchline, really stretching play. That meant that Dewsbury Hall and Ndidi could really push up. You'd see that Vardy would actually drop deep. So, you know, he's pulling defenders with him. You'd see Winks and Ricardo there. Look at how high up Vestergaard would get. As you would mention, depending on how deep the opposition would sit, then you'd start seeing Fass or Justin, or sometimes they played on opposite sides. They would start moving up as well to make an additional attacker as well. And look at Mad's position. If you actually look at his average position last season, believe it or not, his average position isn't in the goal line. It's somewhere about here. So it just goes to show you that, you know, that sweeper keeper, what we're trying to do there. So that's what I felt worked last season. And unfortunately, I guess my kind of closing thoughts are just put here as a joke. But I would have to say that I feel like this is going to be the T-shirt for this season, which is unfortunately straight back down. I really hope that I'm wrong on that. But I'll just kind of get your thoughts before we sort of end the show. Yeah, that's pre-season. We won't mention the Spurs game just yet. Maybe we'll talk about in the preview show in the future. How are you feeling? What do you think we need to do? We can talk briefly a little bit maybe about some of the signings that are coming in.
Quickly, my closing thoughts are I understand Christensen on the left-hand side and why he's trying to integrate him into the team. We've seen in the past and glimpses there's a player there. But the problem is when you put Christensen in as the left back, you don't get the best out of Mavadidi, in my opinion. The second thing to add to that is then you're going to have to put JJ somewhere. So you put JJ on the right. I think JJ looks better on the right. But then as you've been talking, we haven't actually talked about much yet, is why are we not seeing Ricky P in the team? Particularly either, like, we know we can even play as an 8 if he needed. We don't play of 8s. We just mentioned it. But in my opinion, he would be much better alongside where he was before with Winks. But then again, we've just now made Ndidi our most expensive player on the team. So we kind of have forced Cooper into playing him. And we all know that he's a great, you know, deep 6. But, like, he's pushing high up the pitch. He played as a 10 yesterday. Why did we have Hamza instead of Ricky P? Again, I know it's a preseason, but this is the strongest side. We want to have a team feel of confidence going into this game against Tottenham, who are a high-pressing team, and we have just been absolutely violated by high press from Lens. So it just doesn't make sense to me. So in my opinion, we're not getting the best out of our wingers, and it's alarming why we haven't seen Ricky P feature so much. And we can talk about Bernadette quickly. I think that's a great signing. But is he going to be playing that 10? I would have loved him to sit in Dewsbury Hall's position last season. But again, we've got to stop talking, romanticizing about Enzo Ball because it's gone now. But I would imagine Bernadette's going to be playing in that 10 position. But then the biggest thing for me is it's going to be a battle between Ndidi and possibly Pereira. We're going to see Pereira play in that fullback position. We haven't seen it yet. So what are your thoughts on the Ricky P and how he's going to be utilized from what you've seen in these preseason friendlies?
That for me is the biggest disappointment. I think if this coach has come in, watched last season, and then thought taking Ricardo out of the team to play Christensen instead is the answer, we are doomed, in my opinion. And it doesn't matter who we sign. This is just not understanding what we were trying to do. We'd have to completely change the way that we play, I feel, if we want to accommodate that. And that's really, really worrying. So, yeah, Luke's mentioned we've just signed Facundo Buonanotte from Brighton, who's like a promising.
Sorry, I didn't say it right.
I've got a feeling I'm not saying it correctly either, but we'll find out on Monday, I'm sure, when he makes his debut. 19-year-old Argentinian, he's got 4 caps. He's actually looks like a really promising player. What he can do for us, I don't know, but it's good cover. That's not a bad signing. But I'm actually, John Percy's just said at the time we're talking right now that we've put in an offer for Fotis Ionades. who's a striker from Panathinaikos, who Sporting Lisbon wanted to potentially replace Gyökeres. So that's an interesting one as well. But I think the worry is that I feel right now it doesn't actually matter who we sign, because I think the problem is, and this is the point of the show today, is that the way that we're set up and the way that we're playing, it just won't work. It's just that simple. It just won't work. There's too many problems. So, as I said, if I was trying to be constructive, I would literally go back to exactly the same way that we're playing last season, because we did it for a whole season. The players should be comfortable with it, and you could make tweaks on it that way and try and really look at where the spaces are and what people are doing and why. Because otherwise, like I say, in these clips, what's going to happen is that we're going to start chasing shadows. We're going to make spaces, and that's going to make us more open. Like, another way that we could play, to be fair, is just to be really defensive and just to play 4-5-1 or 5-4-1 and just try and hit teams on the break and accept you're only going to have 20% of the ball and play that way. And I would hate for us to play that way. But if I'm being honest, that would be way more effective than what we're trying to do. Because what we're trying to do right now is that, let's say you're fighting Mike Tyson and you're actually trying to fight him and beat him. And what's going to happen is you're going to walk up to him, you're going to throw a punch, and he's just going to deck you and you're going to hit the floor, and it's going to be KO. And the first game of the season, in some ways, couldn't be a worse one. We're playing Spurs. Ange Postecoglou turned that team from the most defensive team to the most high-press team in the Premier League. They had the most high turnovers of any team in the league last season. They ranked number 1. And if that wasn't bad enough, they've just spent 60 million to sign Dominic Solanke. And what you think of him, good or bad, is he ranked number 1 in terms of high pressures and forcing errors into goals of any player, above even Haaland last season. So they're only going to be even better at it. And if I was their coach and I was looking at these clips, I'd be absolutely laughing, because you know that there's just going to be easy. You just have to wait for them to do some suicidal press, win the ball back, and you're going to score that way. So I'm really, really worried about that. So not really kind of great words to kind of look on it. So I feel that, like, unless the coaching structure is really sorted out quite quickly, we're going to have some issues. And unfortunately, I would say I'm not positive for the first game at all. Maybe not even the first couple. What I will say is that we do understand that Steve Cooper, when he was at Forest, he was more pragmatic and he would change the system. So, you and I are reminiscing about Enzo ball. But to be fair, Enzo could still be here. We could line up and try and play it out, and we might find that we're just not good enough at doing it, and we could still end up having a heavy defeat. There is another world where that could have happened for game 1 as well, by the way, right? And then it could kind of change it. So let's not judge it until it happens. But yeah, I am quite worried. I think he will kind of play that. If I was him, I would try and use that player as the Kin and Dewsbury Hall replacement and go back to that system. I guess that's what I'm saying. I would take Christensen out of the team. I'd put Ricardo in. I'd put Ricardo next to Winks. I'd use Ndidi and Buonanotte as the 2 attacking 8s. And I'd play the same way as last season. And I think the worst thing that would happen is that you'd be a slightly inferior version of that team. But I just showed you those clips. And some of those clips that I showed you, it featured players like Yunus Akpan, Dennis Pratt, Casey McAteer. These were not our first team players, but the system still worked.
The system still worked. Yeah. Sorry to cut you off. I spot on agree with absolutely everything that you said. And to begin with, I agree. I don't think it matters who you sign. Under what I'm seeing, I don't think any player can turn this team around against preseason friendlies. I know, but again, not well coached. It's not going to work. I don't think Cooper has it in his wheelhouse. You say he's adaptable. We have seen him play 5-3-2 before. But again, you don't want to confuse the players. And with one of the biggest things I said yesterday was, under Enzo, he was criticized for being never changing and never deviating. He had a plan, he had a style, and he's going to stick to it no matter what team he manages. And the up and positive sides to that no one really talks about is because we were all so well coached. Everyone knew where to be. They knew where to stand. They've had someone else come in that says he's going to try and keep it the same, but he's not. All the drills are probably not the same. So I think we're just going to see a lot of players getting frustrated with one another, which we've already seen, and getting flustered, turning on it. And then once the morale goes, the mistakes come, the confidence drops, people start backing out of challenges, people start, just not really wanting the ball. That's what frightens me. And I would agree with everything that you just said with the players and the positions. That lad from Brighton taking Dewsbury Hall's position, Ricky P taking his spot back, and then you have Christensen as cover, you have McAteer as cover, and you have Cordova Reid as cover for squad depth options. But at the end of the day, significantly weaker. Kelechi Iheanacho in his day, very good striker. He's played a lot of Premier League. He's played in Europa League. Pratt, Belgian international, sick note I know, but still a Belgian international, Premier League experience. Yunus Akgün, Champions League experience at was it Galatasaray? Was it Galatasaray? I think it was. What was it? He came from? Yunus Akgün. Was it Galatasaray Galatasaray. So he's had Champions League experience there, Turkish international, and now in replace of that we have Golding, 12 minutes of FA Cup football, could be a gem, but we don't see him play. Will Alves, everyone keeps saying, a prospect. I hope he is. If academy product, just re-sign. Didn't play any championship minutes football. Brighton always puts a big shift in. Legend of the club, he's gone. So in terms of depth, I seriously think we are weaker than we were last season with a worse manager. So again, this is a negative rant from both of us, but in my opinion, I think we need to start making contingency plans for Carlos Corberán or another potential manager that does play possession-based football.
Wow, pretty savage. I was going to say, Luke, if I was you, I'd make sure your CV is up to date because you might well have the opportunity to send that in very quickly. And apologies to anyone who watches this. We are rather negative, but I think we've got to call it as we see it, and it's not looking too good. So look, on that, I'm going to end the show. It's been an hour. Thank you for watching. Please let me know what you think below. Do subscribe to Luke's at Leicester City Down Under. You can subscribe to me at For Fox's Sake TV. The season started. Hopefully it'll be better than what we're thinking, but hang on to your butts. It might be a bit of a rough ride this season. Thank you and goodbye.